What's up, YouTube? This is Maverick Hunter Nova Zardex back with another Sky Striker deck profile. So, as the title says, this is a more budget-friendly version for those of you peasants who can't afford the $100 Triple Tactics talent and the oh-so-expensive Forbidden Droplet and all the bells and whistles and all the freaking Starlight Roses and all that crap. This is for you guys. I will try to list as many alternatives as I can for those of you guys who are just looking for options to run in your deck. The deck's very flexible as long as you have your main striker cards and your archetype spell cards. The deck will just run smoothly as you see fit, and the rest of your interactions can pretty much be just about anything. So it's very adaptable. So you can take this as a sample list and just like tweak it to however you wish, especially for those of you guys who are just trying to learn the deck. But that said, I'll also offer tidbits of advice when I see fit, just to provide especially for the newer players. That said, let's get on with it. For the main monster lineup, we play 3 copies of Raid, the main girl, and the secondary girl. We play 3 copies of Rose. I believe I stressed more than enough why I value the 3 copies of each. For the hand trap lineup, 3 Veiler, 3 Ash, and for this profile we're playing the triple gamma 1 driver package. These should be pretty affordable by now. I believe they're like $1 each. Should be easy to get. But Gamma is considered one of the best hand traps in the game right now. Personally, I have a love-hate relationship to this card because every time I've tried to run the card in previous formats, I've always come across its main issues being the fact that it's potentially dead after you've used the first one, especially on your opponent's turn. Drawing multiples kind of sucks, and I hate playing Garnets, so Driver bothers me every time I draw it. But there's that. Maybe some of you guys may feel the same way. It's a pretty powerful card right now, but you're going to have to deal with the cons too sometimes. So if you're not up for that, there's plenty of alternatives. Especially a lot of hand traps are affordable right now. You can play DD Crow, which is still great right now. Ghost Ogre, still pretty universal, good against rogue matchups especially. Phantasme is also pretty affordable, and it's actually not a bad choice in this deck because it's a pseudo draw engine for you. You don't mind having monsters in your main monster zone anymore as much, especially with cards like Zeke, allowing you to just get rid of it whenever you want to, or you could just use it to link climb further, get rid of it with Area 0 and the like, or just use it as a beat stick and just try to build a board and then save all of your striker spells to break their board instead if they break yours. So stuff like that. You have plenty of generic options over this if you don't want to play it, but that's definitely like a pretty solid option right now because there's a lot of must-stop cards your opponent may have that you want to deal with. And for the less spice for the monster list, we play 3 Gamma Seal. And the reason I'm playing this is, again, I stressed in my last video that this deck needs out Dragoon and you need main deck outs. So Gamma Seal is pretty flexible in that regard. Now that we have the 3rd Anchor, you have more ways to break it. There's a lot of ways for you to get rid of the card once you put it on their field. You can always just anchor it, burners it, jamming ways if you play it. Summon out Zeke to banish it so they can't link it off, or just use Zeke's boost effect to just kill it. You can also summon your own Gamma Seal if you have like 2 in your hand. Use it to link climb, steal theirs, use it for beatdown. Just like a myriad of ways you can use the card properly. Doesn't eat up your normal summon, so you could just like selectively get rid of anything problematic that's untargetable, like Dragoon, Avramax. Charles with that can't be targeted, just stuff like annoying pesky things like that, and you can save your other interactions for basically everything else to deal with. But yeah, it's there. If you feel like it may be a bit too unorthodox and you want to try something else, you can opt to run, say, cards like Forbidden Chalice, which acts as a pseudo impermanence. It's got perks that Impermanence doesn't have, like you can play the card from your hand even while you have cards on the field, like Area 0, so it has that flexibility. It's a spell card in and of itself, so that contributes to your spell count in the graveyard that helps your other striker cards, so there's that. You can opt to play more hand traps, also opt to play more board breakers, but we'll get a little bit more to that. So that's the monster lineup. For the striker spells, we play the 1 multi-roll, 2 Afterburners, 3 copies of Widow Anchor, 2 Area 0, 1 Hornet Drone, 1 Eagle Booster, and 2 Shark. One piece of advice that I want to give to you guys about Shark Cannon that I don't really see being utilized enough. Shark Cannon, to keep in mind, it only prevents the monster you summon from attacking. It does not negate their effects. So, if they have a card that you can abuse, especially like on their turn, like you can steal like a Makaba, or if they side deck like say like Artifact Scythe against you, and you somehow manage to get over that, you can say like use Shark Cannon to steal their Scythe, use up monster's effect, and then use that against them. Or if they made access code, for example, and they somehow manage to break your board and you survive, you kill their access code, steal it from them, and use that access code to break their board that they made. That's just like a one thing just to keep in mind, because I don't see that effect being utilized enough. So there's a little bit more to Shark Cannon than just like using it to link climb. But yeah, just wanted to offer that piece of advice, especially for the new players. But so far this lineup is pretty standard. Again, I prefer also the double burners over burners jamming right now, but it's pretty interchangeable. Very minor differences, but I feel like double burners is just better for the format because there's like a lot more monsters you want to deal with right now. So that's it for striker spells. Onto generic cards. We play 2 copies of Mystic Mine, 1 Rhoda, 1 Terraforming, 1 Upstart Goblin, 1 Mind Control. And since we don't have talents, we have to play the 3 copies of Desires. Of course, some of you guys may feel like I have to play 3 Desires on either list, but yeah. On to the point. 3 Desires, of course, this is your pseudo-engage. This is your consistency card. It's a live spell, easy to play. No holds bar, you get a +1. One thing I will say about this card, and I see this way too often when I watch some people pilot this deck, is they shotgun Desires when it's absolutely not necessary. So one piece of advice I could like to stress out is that you should not activate Desires unless you absolutely have to. I see so many cases where people just shotgun the card for no reason, even though they have like access to their plays already, or they have plenty of interactions already, or they haven't it's like the first card that they drop and they don't even consider that the opponent may have the Ash, and they're risking their grind game in the process. So I just wanted to point that out because I see too many people being reckless with the card. Don't be afraid to get rid of this, like for cards like say like Area 0, if you feel like your hand can deal whatever your opponent has already. And also the like other play lines, like say if you're afraid that they have the Ash and you have like an ace in your hand, you can use a Shizuku to bait out the Ash and save your Desires for next turn so that it's actually live and you actually ensure that you get those 2 cards, those 2 draws. But yeah, that's just a little bit of advice I wanted to share with that. People play this card a bit too recklessly, and all I gotta say is that the TLDR is don't be reckless with this card. Be careful when you play it. Consider the risk that you're taking, what's important right now, what resources that you have, and if you really need to dig into your deck, just consider those factors before you just YOLO this card. But that's it for the main deck. That basically covers that. So there are certain other cards in the main that maybe people might be considering, like one of the main ones is Pot of Avarice, and in theory, personally, in my opinion, in theory, it's okay. My problem with Avarice right now is that it's a tad too slow. Requires a bit more grave setup for you to get off. If we had like another Link 1 Striker Ace, so that we can just fill our graveyard with 5 cards to shuffle back, then it'd be fine. Because like sometimes you don't want to shuffle Ray and Rose back to your deck because they have grave effects and those are valuable. Or like sometimes it's just like hard to set up and you have to go out of your way to recklessly go into your Link once just to make it so that Avarice is live, and I feel like that's a very careless move. You don't really need to recycle too much this format. There isn't really too many matchups where you have to have the recycle. Personally, I prefer Hercules base over it, just because the card is searchable. It's a striker name, and it's the double attack equip effect comes up sometimes. You can get a draw off of it. It has a lot more variables to it versus Avarice, and I like it over that. And even then, I'd also rather prefer to play Sign at Universe, but over it as a recycle card and as a way to interrupt your opponent's graveyard. That's another factor to it. But you could probably test out one Avarice. I wouldn't play anymore, otherwise the card is just potentially dead in your hand. When you're staring down at a full board and you top deck that Avarice or it's in your starting hand and it's just like it's not doing anything, then it's kind of like the card is kind of like subpar at that point, and you don't really need it. But feel free to try. In theory, it's also like decent against the Dogmatica matchup because of Maximus, where they send 2 from your deck, and then at that point it's easier to fill your graveyard and use this to recycle and get the draw 2. So feel free to try it if you wish. But moving on, that's the main deck. We're gonna go to the extra deck cards. So as usual, basically your ace lineup. You have the 3 Kagari, 3 Shizuku. For this, we'll play 3 Hayate, the 1 Kaina, and right now I'm playing 2 copies of Zeke. And now, of course, if you're starting off the deck, I would say this is a pretty solid lineup. If you're just trying to get a feel for the cards and you don't know how to properly conserve them yet, they're very easy to play. I personally have always wanted to play 2 copies of Zeke in my extra deck, but there's just like no room for it, especially when you want to play the other extra deck options. But if you can interchange basically these for like any other generic links, you could play any of the Charmers. You can play Hita, steal any of the Infernoble Knights, steal a Nightmare Phoenix, steal Ash. You can link climb into you could probably play Nightmare Unicorn, link climb into that. Play the rest of the other Charmers. Area's also a good one because everybody plays Halqui-Fibrex, so you can potentially just steal a Halqui-Fibrex from the graveyard and go straight to a Link 4 or Ningirsu. That's another option. You could potentially play Winda if you feel like you play against Dragon Link a lot and steal the Dragoonity Link 2. That's one thing that you could potentially steal. I'm not sure if Ausa has any use, but that's also another one. And then for the bigger links, of course, Ningirsu is a must because Dragoon is in the format. It's another way to get rid of it. Another of those pesky untargetable cards, and it's very easy to make. Even more so now that Anchor's back at 3. And for the bus monsters, of course, if you can't afford Access Code Talker, Boral Sword is a lot easier to make now, especially with the 3rd Anchor back. The only issue I still have with it is, of course, that it is kind of still pricey to make. You have to work for it a little bit more than other decks do. So you can also just opt to play Topologic Zeraboros or Bomber Dragon. Both are pretty solid options. They only require 2 materials, so they're very easy to make. I especially like Zeraboros because if you resolve a Desires, or your opponent does, or you both did, he becomes a very, very beefy boy, and he just deals a lot of damage there. I like his Banish effect, very useful. It's just non-targeting. Just nuke their board, and he just comes back and just proceeds to punch them for game. Bomber is not a bad option. The cards you could potentially run are Amphibious, Swarmship, Amble Whale. That can float into your links. It gets 200 for each link 2 in the graveyard. So it could potentially be bigger than Dragoon. And, it could pop a card when it gets destroyed and floats. Borreload is also not bad of a choice either, but again, I wouldn't run Borreload and Boral Sword in the same extra deck. I feel like they're just too pricey to make, and it just kind of hurts your variance, your options in the extra deck. Just kind of restricting yourself to one per game. I just like having the flexibility of being able to go into the other to basically everything during the duel. So that's just me. Again, the options are up to you. I feel like at least 3 cards in the extra are basically interchangeable. So there's that. So that's the extra. And for the side deck, for this list, we're playing 2 Ogres. Very good against rogue matchups. Pretty much decent against anything else. 2 DD Crow. Still pretty relevant card this format. Very good against a lot of matchups, especially with the more grave-heavy stuff being released from the ban list. 1 Pecker Tops to deal with back row, and alongside that we have Jamming Waves and the 3 Cyclones. So if you can't afford the $25 and above a Feather Duster, that's not really a big issue. You can argue that Cosmic is a lot better because it's chainable, and it actually gets rid of the card. There's a lot of the Eldritch cards float. We're going to see a resurgence of Rusty Bardiche. So the Phantom Knight cards have grave effects too, so you could say that banishing them is also better versus destroying them with Feather Duster. It's chainable, so it has like its niche. It has like its pluses over that card. So very solid pick. Jamming Waves, play it if you feel like it's if the matchup calls for it. It's very good against decks that like to set it a lot, like Geist, Guru. Pretty good against Eldritch too, just to snipe certain cards and just bait stuff out. And for your go first, these are still pretty affordable. Again, the 2 Judgment, 2 Tikaboo, and 2 Deburrier. You can swap these for anything else, really. If you don't want to play Tikaboo, you can play Summon Limit. You could play, what do you call this? The Dimension card, the one that basically turns the whole field into Macrocosmos for like 1 turn, I think. You could play Strike over Judgment. You have a lot of options, so these are pretty interchangeable. Metaverse is also an option that I see people go for, but I personally don't like relying too much on Mystic Mine, especially now that people are playing Storm evenly, Twin Twister, and Duster, so they could just clear your board. So I prefer to have chainable stuff that gives you value alongside your floodgates and stuff, so I feel like that's better. But that basically covers the deck profile. I believe I pretty much covered everything else I wanted to say. If you have any more questions, feel free to talk to me. Go down in the comment section, express whatever you agree, disagree, whatever comes to your mind. If there's any texts you want to point out, just feel free to just let me know. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope this serves as a guideline for you guys. And subscribe to my channel if you wish. I'll be posting videos whenever I feel up to it, just to keep you guys posted, and just like share my knowledge, share my advice, and hopefully gain some knowledge from you, my viewers as well. So yeah, there's that. But that's basically all I have to say. Pretty much it. Don't know what else to really add to it. This is your boy, Maverick Hunter Nova Zardex, signing out.